Hello everyone, just Gorn here, and today it is International Red Panda Day. It's no secret that these adorable little critters are my favorite animal, so of course they deserve a nice little habitat to call home, which is why today I will be ranking my favorite red panda habitats. I will only be looking at red panda habitats I have visited myself, which means we have a total of 10 habitats to look at today. Avi Fauna, Beekse Bergen, Dierenrijk, Zoopark Overloon, Dierenpark Amersfoort, Blijdorp, Oude Hans, Artis, Plankendaal and Kaisu. I'm not one to give a hard score to anything, but I'll say when ranking these habitats I took into account not just the habitat itself, but also other aspects like theming, landscaping, the education, shelter, guest viewing, the climbing frames, and in general just the uniqueness of each of the habitats. So let's jump into it, starting with number 10, Zoopark Overloon. Now let me start off by saying that none of the zoos at the bottom of this list are by any means bad, not even in the slightest. The habitats here I'd say are ranked incredibly close to each other. They simply don't really have something that makes them stand out, or they have something that holds them back from being higher. For Zoopark Overloon, this something is the landscaping. This habitat, which is a mixed species habitat between the red pandas and Asian small-clawed otters, is a little dull in my opinion. While most habitats in Overloon are incredibly lush and interesting, this habitat is just an empty field with some water and a few trees. What I love about this habitat and makes it truly unique are these little rope bridges going over the visitors, giving some amazing experiences. The habitat is also placed before the entrance of the zoo, which made me feel particularly welcome when I visited the zoo for the first time. However, the habitat being at the entrance of the zoo also has a downside, mainly that it is a high traffic area and this habitat does not provide that many ways for the animals to retreat themselves in terms of foliage and the like. All in all, it's nice, I really like it, but the landscaping, or lack thereof, keep it from being placed higher on the list. Next up, at number 9, we have Plankendaal's red panda habitat. Both the old one and the new one. They're in the process of making a new one. I really just don't have a lot to say about these. There's nothing bad here. Both the old and the new habitats are quite nice. It's just nothing about them really stand out to me. I'm not sure if the new habitat was completely finished last time I was there, as there didn't seem to be any climbing frames as of yet, so maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised next time I go, but for now that's really all I have to say about it. Dierenrijk is next at number 8, and to be honest this could have been Plankendaal as well. Dierenrijk is very similar in the sense that as a habitat nothing really stands out to me, except of course the giant transmission tower standing in the middle of it. Not sure if that's exactly a good thing though. I'm not sure what it is about this and Plankendaal's habitat that made me rank them kind of on the same level, because they're not that incredibly similar, except for the fact that they both house the pandas with Rees Munchak. Dierenrijk's habitat is a lot more open and quite a bit bigger than the current Plankendaal habitat, with a lot more foliage, which I definitely do appreciate as well. The natural climbing frames fit nicely into it over here, so if Plankendaal's new exhibit is anything like this one, it might actually take its spot. But for now, this is how I felt. So I feel like I should mention Dierenrijk does have a cool bit of interactive red panda education through this educational quiz game thing, but it's not really anywhere near the habitat, so I didn't think it counted for this ranking. It's a bit of an odd situation. Moving on to number 7, we have Artis. Artis is a very old zoo, and the red panda habitat, as well as the mandrill habitat beside it, show this very well with their pretty old animal pit-like enclosures. While unique among the red panda habitats that I've seen, this is not something I'm necessarily a huge fan of, though at least the red panda habitat is a lot more well off than the mandrills, which is just a bare rock pile in a pit. The pandas have this very lush, bushy surface underneath their climbing frame, and I guess what is nice about the pit is the fact that this provides you with an eye-level view of the pandas as they are climbing around, which is something you don't see very often. Something else I really liked when I was here for the first time were these little huts that are the shelter of the red pandas. I thought they were very cute, but then I went to some other zoos and they had very similar huts, so they kind of lost their uniqueness a little bit, but cool nonetheless. At number 6 we have Dierenpark Amersfoort. If you've seen the full zoo tour of this zoo, you will know that at Dierenpark Amersfoort they love their reverse habitat immersion, and this red panda habitat is no exception. The glass viewing areas have the path continue through them into the enclosure, which is always a great touch. This, along with the Chinese theming, gives the habitat a bit of a unique character. And yes, theming, it's nothing major, but this is the first habitat that we've seen that is actually somewhat themed in a way. Of course, since it's been discovered that red pandas are actually two separate species, the Chinese and the Nepalese red panda, the Chinese theming in this habitat could be seen as a little out of place for what we now know is the Nepalese red pandas that are found in every zoo. But seeing as this was discovered only a year or two ago, the zoo can hardly be blamed for that. What I will blame them for, however, is this dangerously cute sign, which is often misinterpreted by visitors as meaning that red pandas are dangerous creatures, while the sign is trying to say no, the fact that they are so cute is actually endangering them. But yeah, that message is not being brought across, and combine that with the already lacking educational signage that this zoo has for pretty much all of its animals, the habitat definitely loses some points in the education department. Though it gains those back in the climbing department, because look at that climbing frame. It is huge, it's complex, there's things all over the place. It's probably the biggest climbing frame among all these habitats, so that's really cool. It was fun to see, especially the juveniles running around across it. Just so much fun. But we still haven't mentioned one of the most unique parts of this habitat, and that is that it's completely netted over. This is the only habitat on the list where that's the case, and I wonder what caused them to make this decision. Of course, red pandas are well known as escape artists, so maybe they wanted to be a little extra safe, who knows. Personally, I don't particularly like or dislike the decision to make it netted over. I do prefer an unobstructed view into a habitat, but this habitat does its best to provide ample viewing spots using glass, which in turn allows for that reverse habitat immersion effect, so I think it's cool. Alright, halfway there at number 5 we have Safari Park Beekse Bergen. I initially put this one at number 6, but when I gave it some more thought I figured I might have been overcompensating for my bias a little bit. While this habitat means a lot to me, I mean it's basically because of these red pandas that I started my Beekse Bergen recreation, it's also just a really solid habitat and it deserves to be a little higher in the list. I think most of the reason why I love this habitat so much comes down to the shape, the viewing areas, the landscaping and the climbing frames. Just something about the way the sun hits the pandas when they're up in those climbing frames make this habitat such a joy to visit. And the climbing frame itself looks great with natural logs and appear meticulously placed to create such a striking appearance. The terrain below the climbing frame has a lot of variety thanks to all the little hills and rocks, and when the habitat was still brand new I thought it was lacking in terms of foliage, but as the saplings have started to grow and even more saplings have been planted, this is becoming less and less of an issue, and I'm sure in a few years it won't be one at all. As for the viewing areas, I love the little rocks that you can climb to get a closer view of the pandas, and the main viewing area, a dock-like structure, has me literally screaming with joy whenever a red panda passes under me. So yeah, I don't think I'm biased, this is just a really great habitat and I like it a lot. At number 4 we have Avi Fauna. This habitat brings back some fond memories. I actually visited this habitat on International Red Panda Day 3 years ago, the day that red pandas were confirmed to be featured in Planet Zoo. So I had an awesome day at the zoo there. But yeah, back then I wasn't really in the business of recording zoo tour footage like I do now. So what I can show you footage wise is limited, but trust me, this habitat is gorgeous. I found some pictures on Zoo Chat that I'll put up as well to show you guys. So this habitat is lush. It has lots of trees, natural climbing opportunities for the pandas, and I don't know, I just think it looks beautiful. What's also really cool about this habitat is the unique species mix. Well, it's pretty common to see the red pandas mixed with muntjacs, Asian small-clawed otters and the like. Here they are mixed with red-crowned cranes and mandarin ducks, which I thought was pretty cool. I'm also a pretty big fan of this arch that is featured in the back of the habitat. It's a nice bit of theming, but not too on the nose, and the naturalistic materials and colors make it blend in very well with all of the foliage. I'm not sure what else to say about it. It just looks really nice. It's got several viewpoints, both from the side looking somewhat into the trees and forested area, and this main view from this bridge-like structure. It's just really good. I like it a lot. Alright, going into the top 3, starting off at number 3 with Kaisu. This habitat really stood out to me in terms of both size and just the amount of natural trees the pandas have to climb around in. It was so cool to see. I also really like how you encounter the habitat multiple times, which is really when it starts to dawn on you how big it actually is. After you first encounter the habitat, you then move on to this otter habitat, after which you return to the panda habitat, but then from a different view. And even further along, there's a little dining area next to a restaurant where you have another view of the same habitat. It's really neat. Add a good species to the mix with the muntjacs as well, and you've got a really nice unique species mix here as well. And yeah, I don't really have much to say about it. It was just a very pleasant, nice habitat. Now, if you've been keeping track, you probably know what the number 1 is going to be, but first let's have a look at number 2, which is Ouwehands Dierenpark. After you've seen the completely over-the-top giant panda enclosure over here, you move on to the original panda. I remembered that the lady designer mentioned in her Koali Zoo video about the giant pandas, how the red pandas at the zoo are a little overshadowed by their black and white neighbors. So I was prepared for a tiny, lackluster exhibit. However, when I got there, I did not feel this way at all. This was such a lovely red panda habitat. It was spacious, it felt open while still having a nice amount of plants in it. It had a nice variety of climbing frames, from logs to these treacherous rope bridges that the pandas seem to enjoy quite a lot. I just had so much fun standing around, watching the pandas walk and climb around, and that wasn't even the best part. So far, there hasn't been that much in terms of education around these habitats. It's all just been the standard zoo signage and nothing quite special. While the number 1 spot definitely takes the cake in the education department, Ouwehands certainly doesn't slack on it either. Straight across the habitat is a little shack run by a volunteer where you can learn all about different bears as well as the red pandas. You even get to touch some panda fur, an experience that I will never forget. The only downside to this touch table is that it isn't open all day, but wow, when it is opened, this is the kind of stuff that makes an impression on people. It's just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, a fantastic exhibit overall, second only to Blijdorp or Rotterdam Zoo. Yeah, if you've seen anything of the new red panda habitat at Blijdorp, you probably weren't surprised by this. As soon as I saw the first pictures of the area Blijdorp was building for their red pandas, I was ecstatic. While the habitat was still being built, the pandas were housed with the dwarf mongoose, which was also a fun, if not slightly weird experience. But this was the start of probably the most elaborate red panda habitat I have ever seen. There wasn't really anything wrong with their old habitat. It was spacious, lush, you had this bridge that went through the habitat and the pandas could climb over top of you, which is all really, really cool. And most of the habitat is actually still here, with some slight alterations, like the pandas now go under the bridge instead of over it. I'm not sure how much else has changed actually. I know that the route of the bridge has been changed, but that doesn't really matter. It's still a really cool habitat. And since I've been pointing out pretty cool species mixes, this habitat, the red pandas actually share their space with the tufted deer, which is definitely pretty cool. The first time I was here since the new habitat opened, the pandas were out, exploring the habitat, moving all over the place, which that's just always fun to see, right? But that is not all. The main event is actually the new Himalayan panda rock. An entire area just dedicated to the red pandas. Truly a dream come true. The entire area features Nepalian architecture, native plants, there's a red panda playground. I mean, what more can you ask for? Well, how about the habitat itself? A giant rock for the pandas to climb, which is also an indoor area for the pandas to retreat to. So it's really just up to the animals whether they want to be outside or not. Just wow. By now, I think I should probably mention that Blijdorp is actually the species coordinator for the red panda breeding program in Europe. So of course it makes sense that they'd give them a little more attention, but for them to go all out like this, that is just something else. I'm totally here for it. And I haven't even mentioned my favorite part yet, which is the education. The education here can only be described as over the top, in the best way possible. There are 2 education points. One, as you approach the area, there is this house on the right, which has a few TV screens inside with videos playing on it about Blijdorp's role as a species coordinator and what they do to help red pandas in the wild, which is already really cool, but it gets even better as you pass the Himalayan rock exhibit and you enter the Forest Guardian hut. Now this hut is meant to resemble a hut that would be used by the Red Panda Network Forest Guardians, a team of people that are at the heart of red panda conservation. These people study the red panda populations, educate locals about what they can do to prevent further decline in the species, and they protect pandas against poachers and other threats. You can learn all about what they do inside the Forest Guardian hut here at Blijdorp, which is just littered with props, giving you an impression of the tools that the Forest Guardians use in their work, but by far the coolest thing, it just gets better and better and better, is this interactive book. The book tells you the story of red panda conservation through a lovely animated video. Every page has a different story to tell, and yes, these are actually physical pages that you have to turn. A little camera scans a QR code on the corner of each page so that it knows which page to project. It's actually really cleverly done, actually. So yeah, just 1,000 points to Blijdorp for coming up with this. It is fantastic. Then as we exit the Forest Guardian hut, we get a glimpse of the expanded rhino habitat, after which we enter that old renovated section for the pandas that I just talked about, and that completes the loop of the Himalayan area. I can only praise it, really. There's only one thing about it that I didn't like, and it's not even something that the zoo can really do that much about. The big rock you see in the habitat, that is actually a monument, a remnant of the classical zoo. Now this is really cool. I love how classical zoos have to preserve pieces of zoo history, but because this is a monument, certain things about it can't be changed. And I think this includes the barrier around the habitat, which I think is a bit of a shame, as it definitely clashes a little bit with the Nepalian theming of the area, in my opinion. But that's really the only complaint I have with this area. Everything else, it's amazing. Really, it outranks every other habitat on every criteria. So yeah, congratulations Blijdorp for making it to the top of my ranking, I guess. And before I forget to mention this, Blijdorp actually apparently also had a touch table somewhere where you could pet some red panda furs. It was not near the red panda habitat, but still, like, this was even better taxidermied as the one at Owl Hunt, and it's so cool. I love this so much. I've pet a red panda, technically. I'm not sure if this really counts, but the feeling's the same, and it doesn't harm any animals, so really cool. I like it so much. But yeah, that's pretty much it for my ranking. Thank you for watching all the way through if you're still here. Hope you enjoyed this type of video. I might make more of them. I actually really like getting to use some of the zoo tour footage of zoos that I might not be able to get to for a while in the zoo tour series, because those videos take quite a long time to edit. So yeah, if you want more of this, if you have any recommendations or requests, feel free to comment them down below. But I'm gonna leave you guys here for now. Happy Red Panda Day. If you feel up to it, you can donate to the Red Panda Network. I'll leave a link to that below. There's a donation page for it actually today for the International Red Panda Day, to which I of course also have donated some of my money. I think I'm gonna get a Red Panda Day 2022 shirt as well. I saw that I have those, and I feel like that'd be pretty cool to have. So yeah, anyway, I'm starting to ramble, so I should just leave you guys be and enjoy your day. Bye bye.